Hello everyone, Ryan here. So I wanted to do something a little different. Create an original tag here. This would be my second original tag. The first one was called Madman's Monster Tag. And a decent amount of people participated in it. But I feel like maybe I made the questions, I guess for some, people considered questions to be a little too hard to answer. So for this tag, I decided there won't be any questions. All it is I'm calling it the first time I read a book tag, and all that it involves is just talking about the first time you read a book, or what you can remember first time you read a book, and what you remember about that experience, how it made you feel. And it doesn't matter, how detailed you get, or, how short you keep it or long. So that's pretty much it. In an effort to get somewhat of a better understanding of how fellow booktubers and bookworms, how we all got, pulled into this awesome world of books. And so, yeah, I'll go ahead and start talking about my own experience. Now, I guess I should start by saying I remember at a very young age, my dad used to read to both me and my sister on a regular basis, pretty much at least once every night or every other night before we went to bed. And usually he read us, the standard stuff like Dr. Seuss, Berenstain Bears, although supposedly I guess they're actually called Berenstain Bears. But I swear I remember they were called Berenstain. There's a whole theory about that. It's like something to do with the changing of timelines. And I know it sounds crazy, but I swear when I was a kid they were called the Berenstain Bears. So unless I just always mispronounced them, but I don't think so. But anyways, also I remember him reading us various Sesame Street books, and then I believe it wasn't until I was about 7 or 8 that at school we started reading this book called I want to say it was these different stories that was part of a collection, but they all revolved around these characters called Frog and Toad, I believe. And I remember vividly these pictures, these really detailed illustrations of a frog and a toad and hanging out. And I believe the toad was like the grumpy one, and frog was like the more extroverted one. So I think it was for a whole week, our teacher told us to go home and read these different stories. And at one time she gave us this one complete book. It was the first book that she gave us that wasn't a collection, and it was divided into chapters. And I remember I was thinking to myself that I thought it was an impossible task. And I didn't use those words at the time, but now I do. But I took it home anyways, and then all she asked of us was to read the first chapter, and then the next day we were going to talk about it in class. But then I ended up reading not only the first chapter, but the first, the first 5-6 chapters, and without even really intending to, and before I knew it, I remember just like all of a sudden I realized that I had read like about 6 chapters, and I felt very accomplished. I felt very proud of myself. And I remember for me, as a kid, it was pretty much one of the only few times that I felt like I actually accomplished something. I mean, the only other time I could think of before that was like when I had learned to ride a bike, and but yeah, I remember, and you know, I was surprised, and I remember when my dad came home from work later that day, and I told him about it. I pretty much told him, you know, look, the teacher told us to read the first chapter, but I read like 6 chapters, and I think I like reading, and I think I want to read other books too, and and my dad was encouraging. He was always encouraging, and he pretty much just said something along the lines of, you know, well, great, you know, then later this weekend I'll take you to a bookstore, buy you some books, and I think I remember like saying out loud, I was like, yeah, all right, and and yeah, I just, you know, for me that was a very pivotal moment for me, because before that, I mean, obviously I was aware of books, I was aware that people wrote books and read books, but I had no idea that, before that, I had no idea that reading could be considered such a fun activity, such an awesome way to pass the time. And so, I mean, even now while I talk about it, I'm reminded of how excited I felt. And still, so that helps me when I think about that. It kind of, it definitely encourages me to you know, to keep reading now on a regular basis. And you know, it's a shame that more people don't enjoy reading. I happen to believe that maybe it's just because, you know, unfortunately there's a lot of people that didn't have that experience where, you know, unfortunately they just they've either never had somebody to encourage them to read, or they were brought up, you know, they were raised to care more about other things rather than reading. So obviously, I understand different people's different circumstances and whatnot. But yeah, then pretty much after that, unfortunately, I want to say, like, by the time I turned 9 or 10, that's when I kind of stopped reading for a while, because I don't know, it was just like every other kid's book I'd pick up didn't like excite me as much as the first time when I read that Frog and Toad book. And but then later on, once the Goosebumps series came out, that's when my passion for reading was reignited. And then a short while after that, I got into writing too, and started writing my own short stories, sharing them with my friends, and so yeah, that's my experience with, you know, the first book I read. And again, it was just, I consider it to be definitely a pivotal moment for me. I don't know what my life would be like today if I hadn't been encouraged by my dad to read on a regular basis. I don't know, probably definitely much more boring, and that's how I feel. But, so yeah, that's my experience with reading, and the first time I read a book all by myself. And yeah, so as far as tagging people, definitely I want everybody to do this tag. Again, feel free to talk about as much as you want or as little as you want about your own reading experience. First time you read a book. Doesn't necessarily have to be from way back in your childhood, but, you know, from whatever time period, you know, even if it happens to be that, say, you didn't read your first book all the way through till you were in your 20s. If that's the case, then yeah, feel free to talk about that. So I'm just going to tag some people here. I guess I'll tag Todd the Librarian, Dane Reads, Mindy's Book Journey. Trying to think who else. I'll tag Cat's Bookend. There's another new booktuber, I believe. Our channel is something along the lines of Audiobook Adventures, I believe. Yeah. So those are the fellow booktubers I tag. And yeah, once again, feel free to do this tag. That pretty much does it for me as far as this video thing is concerned. So thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and as always, until next time, don't forget, keep it real, keep on rocking, and peace.